Welcome to Range World, the podcast where life, development, leadership, growth, intentionality, and experience come into balance right before your very ears. And now, here's your tour guide into Range World, the president of Get Life in Balance, Rain Kansman.
So welcome back to Rain's World, and today I have Mr. Paul Lapine, and let me introduce you to him. He's retired Cisco Corporation. Paul started his career in the food service industry in 1980, managing a local waterfront restaurant on Cape Cod. Paul left the restaurant business in 1983 to pursue a career in sales to that industry. Over the next 3 decades, Paul held positions in sales, sales management, training and development, and business development for food distributors. Today, he's here to talk about leading with a positive expectancy. And he's also a huge Boston Red Sox fan. Please welcome Mr. Paul Lapine.
Hey, Rain. Great to be here again. It is a privilege.
Yeah.
You say that I'm a huge Red Sox fan. Well, we have to represent, and nothing springs eternal hope like opening day of baseball. As a matter of fact, it goes a little bit prior to that when pitchers and catchers report in February. And I think everybody's optimistic with what's going to happen for the season. They're looking at the team. They're looking at and I'm a baseball fan, so it's just not the Red Sox. I really enjoy the game, played the game pretty much a majority of my life. And, we all these teams, all these major league teams start on Thursday, not all of them, but most of them start Thursday with the same record, clean slate, brand new year. And, you got to wonder, which teams have the highest expectations. And, the great franchises always spend the money, get the great players, but you got to wonder who has the highest expectations and why do they do so well normally with those expectations? We're not going into the first game and opening day thinking, it'd be great to be 500 for the season, right?
Yeah.
No, we're going in thinking, it'd be great to win our division championship. It'd be great to represent our conference, and it would be great to go to the World Series. That's the ultimate goal of these teams. Just like in business, every leader has that ultimate goal to be the best in the industry that they represent. So kind of a little metaphor today. You got Fenway Park in the background, like I'm there, and the Boston skyline in the background. So anyway, figure we could, use that to kick off a new day, a new chapter. And let's go forward.
Here we go, kicking it off. So I love that too. I'm a huge baseball fan also. And what that brings to mind to me is actually, I hated the guy, but I respect the heck out of him. And that's Mr. David Ortiz. Every time it seemed like that, I know he had positive expectancy, and so did everybody that rooted for him, that every time he was going to get up there, he was going to make something happen. And the reality is, it was maybe a third of the time, because, even at that, that's a great, percentage. But he had that positive expectancy going up. So I like this tie-in. So tell me, what do you mean by leading with a positive expectancy?
I think I kind of categorize positive expectancy as expecting to win in going into any certain environment, circumstance, whether it's winning over people, winning business, winning an appearance at the plate, whatever that action is, but having the vision of what it looks like to be successful, kind of going back to the goal setting days that you all know and are so familiar with. You don't say I'm going to try to do something. You say I'm going to do something, and making commitment to that. So having that positive framework in your mind just gets you an advantage right out of the gate. You talk about Big Pop. How can you hate Big Pop? Come on, man. I know he's a he was a killer. But Big Papi, if you look back at his career, and he just got nominated for the Hall of Fame, which is a
I'd
great
vote for
honor.
him. I'd
Yeah,
vote for him.
absolutely. It was all about his attitude. And you know what? Those big moments that he had were just that. They were big moments. He came up in situations where, it was do or die in a lot of cases. And you go back to the first series with the Yankees, and I'm sure I'll get a few phone calls on that one, where
Yeah.
the Sox were down 3-0 in the playoffs. And, he said, come on, guys, let's grow up. Let's put on our big boy pants, go out there, do our job, and let's expect to win the next four. And they
Right.
did. So, we look at the environment that we've been in for the last 2 years in terms of lockdowns, face masks, remote learning, product shortages, inflation, all basically chaos in just about every industry. And some of some of the industries that we all know and are kind of familiar with did extremely well, and others, failed miserably. And people, I'm not going to say people, but companies within the same industry, I think some did exceptionally well, and while others kind of floundered.
Yeah.
And and I'm going to go out on a limb and say that, you know what, it was all about the leadership of those organizations having a positive expectancy of what the outcome was going to be if they took chances. And I think every major business knows that the time to invest in their business is when things are absolutely at the worst. So it's hard to pull the trigger. It's hard to make that commitment monetarily in many cases, but it certainly can pay tremendous dividends. And I think it did for a lot of different types of businesses that really were bold. They made some bold changes in the midst of COVID and all the craziness that was going on. And I think they're all, they're better off today, and certainly ahead of their, respective peers in their business.
Yeah, so much good pieces. The more flexible we can to move and change our direction during that time, right?
Yeah.
You're a sailor, and being out on the water, right, and the seas starting to get rough, you want to be able to quickly maneuver yourself out of that kind of situation and into a place where you can continue to sail smoothly. And what you're talking about is absolutely true. There were some different ones in different places, and
being nimble, I think, in this kind of an environment, and being ready to accept change and to pass that through. And everybody, we heard all our lives, well, we're in a big ship. We can't just change our course and instantaneously. We have to plan the change of course. I get that. Sometimes, necessity, or the environment necessitates a much quicker adaptation to change, which you talked about the last time, and getting everybody on board. But being a leader that walks the walk, in this case, they needed to do it 24/7. They needed to represent their brand. They needed to represent their mission of why they were, getting to that end game, and why they were doing what they were doing, to all of their employees, to every single employee, to everybody who was a stakeholder in any organization. That message had to come through loud and clear, and there was no room for error. There were no missteps allowed. You needed to stay to your guns. I've been enthralled with Homestead Rescue. I don't know if you've ever watched that. And it's this guy Rainey. Of course, his name escapes me right now, but he goes in with his son and a daughter, and they go into homesteaders that have absolutely dire circumstances going on in their environment, and he makes some strategic suggestions for change with what the outcomes are going to be. Kind of the visionary knowing what that outcome is going to be if we make these steps. If we take these steps to correct these issues, and in many cases, it saves the homestead from from going out of existence for many reasons. But anyway, I watched that program, and I think that's a great one on leading through positive expectancy and conveying that message to these poor people that are up against the wall.
Right.
Just a sidebar.
No. So I see how it ties and correlates to what you said earlier. And again, it's always motivating. It's always a plus to have a leader that you look at and you go, yeah, this person's focused on the right things. They're excited, they're passionate, they're moving forward. And especially during the times we just went through, because there was so much darkness for a lot of people, right?
Yeah, and people want to be led. People are looking towards that leader for, the direction. And if, again, going back to trust and all the things we've talked about, and there's been a lot of great correlations. Bill Lewis just talked about encouragement in one of your recent video conferences. And, I thought that there was a great tie into what I was going to do. And it's, again, walking the walk and making people feel, good about what they're doing and letting them make mistakes along the way. He brought up, suggested a company that had invested millions of dollars in a new technology that failed miserably. And then the person who was responsible walked in with a resignation. He said, why would I fire you when I just spent, $2.5 million on tuition, basically. You've learned, let's learn from it. Let's move forward. So, the influencer and the leader, they have the ability to create change in human behavior. And, just think of everybody on 15 people on a paddleboard in tough currents. And, the leader says, well, we're going to do this and follow me and try to duplicate or replicate my strokes in terms of where I'm going. So we'll all end up going in the same direction. Right. And, that's I think a good graphic of just getting everybody rowing in the same direction, getting everybody working towards common goals of the organization with that positive expectation. As a leader, you're going to be judged based on a bunch of different variables. And sometimes we make judgments on our own personal biases,
right?
And we can, if we're not on board because of one of our biases, then it's up to the leader to try to break that bias, if you will, and get to common ground and get us going in the right direction. And I'm going to share a story. I think you were part of the some of the training that we did up in Bethel, Maine. We remember doing a human interaction laboratory was the name of the actual workshop. And we were very short on participants. So looking around the room, I think we had probably, let's say we had 20 participants to break out in 4 or 5 groups. And in order to that workshop to really be effective, we needed, vast diversity within that group. Gotcha. So with 20 people, there weren't enough to really make the workshop go more than really 2 or 3 groups tops. So the instructors did something what I thought was at the time was kind of radical. They brought in a bunch of their family, which happened to be high school age kids. There were probably 5 or 6 additional people that were entered in the program that were in their mid-teens, 15, right. 16, right. 17. And here are these, I'm looking around the room and there's people from every industry represented. And my thought process, which was my bias, was saying, what can this person offer me, just thinking kind of selfishly,
sure.
as far as this workshop goes. And at the end of the week, boy, those biases were erased and a new appreciation for, not only the diversity of the people that were there and their opinions, but also of the youth that were represented in their opinions and how we use their opinions to kind of formulate ideas and going forward within that workshop that really worked for the benefit of everybody there. So again, the insertion was puzzling to everybody. We're paying thousands of dollars, but
right.
At the end of the day, it was great that, the leaders, we trusted them to bring us to a point that there was going to be a positive
right.
outcome, which there was, which is great. So as a leader, an influencer, like I said before, has the ability to create change behavior within people. As an influencer, number one, within the organization, a team leader, you have to have integrity. We've talked about that 100 times. Uh, and I think that's kind of the starting point. The ability of a leader to nurture their people and bring them along, enrich their knowledge based on their experiences, and coach them through both, difficult times and also um, good times
Right.
is also a great trait. So again, kind of reinforcing that positive expectation along the way. I think that the leader that leads with that positive expectancy also understands exactly what his people are thinking.
Mm-hmm.
He also gives them time to ask questions,
Yep.
to digest and respond with empathy. I think he also enlarges and promotes the people that are around him. So that person has a better sense of worth and being, and knowing that their contributions to the organization are gonna definitely count down the line. And when you enlarge or when you promote that person, it does also make them more promotable, which is great. We talked about navigating through difficult times, and encouraging and reinforcing when things go well.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, Also, I think connecting on all levels to people of all levels makes that leader very approachable. And if we you hear being a chameleon and being to adapt to
Right.
your environment. We have to be able to adapt as a leader, adapt to the environment, and kind of change our response to the people that are within the team. Because I know we've spoken at length before about, you got a tropical fish bowl and you got all these different species of fish in it, and yet, what are we going to do? Feed them the same thing? Well,
Yeah.
we feed them this mix of food, so it's good for everybody, and that's kind of the approach. I knew that when I was running teams, that I always took, that everybody's going to get a little different response to what I give them. So kind of change
Right.
that food for, if you will, to each
Mm-hmm.
individual. Connecting to people, I think that goes without saying. Uh, Empowering them, and then reproduce what you do. Have others be able to reproduce what you do. So that the contagion of positive expectancy
Mm-hmm.
is it's not like anything else. It kind of can run rampant. And I know we've both worked for leaders that were extremely optimistic and extremely empowering and extremely uh, looking, even though there were, what they were looking for in terms of results, we all know what they were, but they wanted to make sure that they knew why you were doing what you were doing and that you were part of that process along the way. So I think that's kind of pulling people through the process instead of pushing them through the
Right.
process, and then just walking the walk 24/7.
Yeah. More inclusive that way.
Yeah,
So,
I'm
so
talking a lot, Rain. I'm talking a lot.
yeah, but some really good stuff, Paul. And I think going to your topic too, we do expect people to replicate what we've shown or led or those kind of things, and they'd be more committed if we're more positive and passionate about what we're doing, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
And that's just, when we wake up, and as simple as waking up in the morning and choosing to have a great day. There was a gentleman out in Syracuse. I'm sure he'll probably watch this, and we're gonna ask him, "Hey, how you doing today, Ray?" And he would say, "Reasonable." I go, "Okay, well, that can be interpreted on many different levels." And just like uh, I had a competitor that always used to hound me on the street. He seemed to be kind of following in my footsteps wherever I went, and no matter how bad business was and how bleak it was, when he asked me how was business, I always told him it was unbelievable, with an enthusiastic,
Right.
a voice that kind of got him kind of off guard. And I
Yeah.
said, no matter what he thinks unbelievable is, the interpretation that I led him with was it really was unbelievable. So, he could be thinking, man, this business is really tough and this guy's just killing it.
Yeah.
So, let them think what they think. But I think it was Walt Disney who said, "If you can dream it, you can do it."
Yep.
just remember this whole thing was started with just a mouse.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, you think about the days of Walt Disney and forming Disney. He had a vision, and he
Mhm.
had that. Certainly, there was nothing negative in his mind. He was
No.
going forward, no matter what it took, and in the steps that he took and the people and he involved to get that park built, and specifically in Florida, was pretty incredible.
Exactly. So you answered all but one of my questions. So and you kind of did, but let me pull these pieces out. So as a leader, what will I benefit from learning this skill? Because staying positive isn't easy.
No, no, it's not. It's
Yeah.
not. And you always have to be that duck on the pond. And ducks kind of float around the pond effortlessly, right? But you look underneath the water, the feet are always moving.
Yeah.
So with that positive expectation and being able to, there might be times at the end of the day when you go home and you you might cry in the car on the ride home, because it was a tough day, and
Yeah.
you can't let the other side, you can't let your team see that. If you're truly in that framework, and the benefit to that is a high performing team
Yeah.
in most instances, and with an expectation much higher than what the normal team would be. And as we go into opening day on Thursday, I'm really wondering. I saw a couple of spring training games down here, the Rays and the Braves against the Red Sox second team, and I could see some real uh, potential in quite a few of the new players, specifically, well, for the Red Sox and for the Rays, for both teams. And the difference between somebody, with that just, oh, hey, I'm going to get up and I'm going to, have a good at bat, and my goal is to at least, not strike out or not make
Yeah.
an out. If I get a hit, look like they've been there before. But if I hit the ball on the ground towards a defensive player, run it out.
Right.
Give the effort,
Yep.
because something can happen along the way between that 90 feet or whatever the distance that ball travels, and before it gets to first base, using baseball as an example, that could change the game. And to watch some of the players just absolutely total hustle, totally going down the line, and other guys, you think that they're waiting to call an Uber to get them to first base, and it's like, hey guy, it's not going to happen for
No.
you if that's your attitude, if that's what you think, if that's how you're going to represent every day of the week. It's not good enough.
Yeah. And like leaders in industry, they're always being watched, and that makes
yeah.
up their persona, their whole way. And if we see that from our leaders, we don't have a lot of faith, do we, my friend?
No, that's the thing that when it comes to the leadership, again, some of the attributes of the leader, and being able to talk to everybody down to the lowest common denominator, and relate to that person within your organization, is critical. Because if you don't have the buy-in from from everybody, then there's always that hole, there's always that chink in the armor.
Yeah.
So I guess if you kind of sum it up, if you lead with the positive expectancy, if you bring your people along and you model and motivate, mentor, and then multiply, it's like anything else in life. You're just going to have everybody else working for you and the common goal of the organization. Right. And you're only one person. Yeah. And, the certainly having the whole team working in the same direction is much more lucrative for everybody.
Hey, so, wow, Paul, this was entertaining and enlightening, and I wish you all the luck with the Red Sox until they meet the Tigers in the playoffs.
Exactly. Well, we definitely have positive expectations.
That's right.
Everybody's basically at this, perfect right now going into the season. And those teams that come out, knowing what they have and executing on a higher level will ultimately be the winners in the end game. So
absolutely. And I bet though at Vegas, the odds makers would not put the Red Sox and Tigers as being the two teams playing in the American League pennant.
I don't think so.
But
I don't think so.
We do, and that's what counts.
Exactly. And if as a fan, I gave up on them after the 75 series for a very short period of time. And my son's, when he was very young, he said, he said, how come you're not watching the Red Sox? I said, because some of the decisions that they make, they're not just playing good fundamental baseball. I really don't want to even bother watching. And he goes, well, you're not a fan. I go, no, that's not the furthest thing from the truth. And yeah, so that kind of hit kind of hard. And I said, well, now, maybe you're right. Maybe I have to think a little bit more optimistically, and maybe there is a bigger plan, and maybe there is a strategic approach that they're taking, just like in any business, that we just don't see. Yeah. So okay, I'll give you the benefit of the doubt. Let's move forward. So
and that got you to 2004 when you got nourished and
yeah, 04, 13, 18. I mean, so I think this is an 18 hat. Yeah,
right.
This is an 18 hat, if you can see it.
Yeah,
right there.
There you go.
Yeah. Anyway, hey, it's great to be able to to have things like as trivial to us as baseball, influence our business. But we can take a lot of lessons. Lessons are learned from some of those great teams that just perform at a higher level, and they perform because their expectations are not only of the coach but of each other. And that's what I think great about transitioning that to any business.
That's true.
Hey, congratulations on what you're doing, and I love
Thank you, my friend.
Seeing all these new ones coming out. It's a lot of fun.
No, it's always been a lot of fun for me to do. Thanks. I appreciate your contributions, buddy.
All right, say hello to Minnie.
I will.
All right, bye-bye.
Bye-bye. This has been another leadership lesson from Rain's World. If this kind of learning whets your appetite, leaving you wanting for another helping of this kind of content, visit me at getlifeandbalance.com.